What's going on, y'all? You already know who it is. It's your boy Jay here. And I want to start by asking you a question. You ever feel like being a law abiding citizen just means you pay to be ignored more politely? Like you're following all of the rules, paying your taxes, working two jobs, if not more, standing in the line at the DMV. And the system still replies with, sorry, not our problem. Yeah, this episode's for you. You are now dialed into Overruled. Let's get this roaster cooking. Welcome to Overruled, the podcast where the law meets the culture, the courts meet the chaos, and your sanity meets the Supreme Court and loses. I'm your host, Jay, and this week, y'all, we're taking a walk through the legal jungle that everyday people are trying to survive with zero compass, zero map, and definitely no healthcare. See, we're living in a country where speaking your mind might get you arrested. Actually, scratch that, will get you arrested. Trying to erase your student debt is treated like treason, and losing your health insurance can be as simple as missing a letter in the mail. The law says you have rights, but the system says only if we feel like honoring those rights. So, let's kick things off with issues on the docket. Because when basic survival becomes a legal question, somebody's got to read the fine print for the people. Bingo! That's me. Let's get started. Okay, so listen. If it feels like lately your money's funny, it's been evaporating, your rights are eroding, and your government is ghosting you like a bad Tinder match or Hinge for the girls who know, you're not crazy. This week's docket is stacked with three very hard truths. You can now be arrested for mouthing off to a cop. Your student loan relief might have ghosted you again. And your health care, that might have been canceled by a piece of mail you never even received.
Excuse me?
So, let's get into it. So, our first story is going to really situate itself around the Supreme Court, which, here we go with them again. They've been highly contested over these last few months, making very questionable decisions. But the Supreme Court has just ruled 6-3 in Barrera v. Colorado that police officers can arrest someone for a petty offense, even if they're using it as retaliation for speech protected by the First Amendment. Translation here, folks. If you tell a cop they're trash and they can eat a bag of dicks and they slap you with a bogus charge, the arrest still stands as long as there was some legal basis for it. Whether or not they were just in their feelings and being an entitled in a uniform, irrelevant. The ruling itself walks back another decision, Neves versus Bartlett in 2019, where the Supreme Court of the United States said officers need a legitimate reason and couldn't retaliate against free speech. Now, the burden is on you, the arrested person, to prove the officer was being retaliatory. And spoiler alert, that's nearly impossible without a signed confession. So, basically what we're saying here, freedom of speech, it still exists, yes, but only if it doesn't hurt a police officer's feelings. The First Amendment just got hit with an asterisk. Valid except when law enforcement's ego is bruised. And considering how many people, especially, and you don't need me to say this, you could probably say it along with me, Black and brown folks get policed for existing, this is a dangerous legal green light for abuse. And under this administration, we should not be surprised. Imagine being cuffed or being put in a headlock for clapping back. And now the court's like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. You kind of deserved it. This is where we're at right now, y'all. So this is a little helpful information from me to you. So if free speech has an asterisk now, just wait till you see the fine print on student loan forgiveness. Some of you thought you had your debt that was going to be disappearing. Well, surprise, it's just been legally chopped again. After the Supreme Court struck down former President Biden's initial loan forgiveness plan, the White House came back with the SAVE plan, a more gradual, income-driven program meant to ease payments and forgive balances over time. But now, lower courts are blocking key parts of it. Borrowers who thought they were finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel are right back in the paperwork wilderness. Two conservative-led lawsuits in Missouri and Kansas claim the Department of Education overstepped its authority in canceling debt without going through Congress. Courts have now paused cancellation for borrowers with 10+ years of repayment. If you fall in that category, this directly affects you. Now, the irony here, these lawsuits are brought by states, not the borrowers themselves. So once again, the people suffering are nowhere near the courtroom. Let me get this straight. Let me make sure I understand this and that y'all understand this. You go to school because that's what society tells you to do, tells us all to do. You take out 5 or 6 figures in student loan debt to get a piece of paper, work for years, and then the courts say, nah, just kidding. We're not paying that off for you, no matter how productive you are to society. Meanwhile, billionaires take PPP loan forgiveness like they are collecting Starbucks points at the drive-thru. The government is out here fighting harder to protect loan servicers than it ever did to protect the students. I mean, is it that hard to just cancel the damn debt? No, it's not, especially with the military spending budgets we have, with the one very horrible, very ugly bill that was recently socialized and passed. Y'all, they could cancel all of this. They really could. We got a whole generation postponing living their life because of the chokehold that they're in from Sally Mae. And speaking of American benefits being chopped, let's talk about your healthcare, okay? Or more specifically, how millions of people are waking up to find out it's been snatched away because a form got lost in the mail, aka something that quite literally is out of a citizen's control. You truly cannot make this up, but here we are. Over 20 million people, 20 million people have lost Medicaid coverage since the pandemic era protections expired in 2023. States are now redetermining eligibility. And guess what? If you didn't return a piece of mail you never received, your coverage could truly vanish. This is hitting low-income families, disabled people, and children the absolute hardest. Federal law allows states to review eligibility, but many are doing it in the most bureaucratic, chaotic way possible. Some states are processing reviews automatically without real human oversight, leading to wrongful terminations, using all that AI instead of putting human eyes on it. Several lawsuits are currently brewing, arguing this violates due process and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Imagine waking up with no insurance, but having it the night prior because a form got lost in the mail. That's what millions are dealing with right now. One day you're covered, the next you're choosing between groceries and insulin. This isn't just government inefficiency. Okay, let's holler at Doge and that. This isn't just government inefficiency. It's a systemic choice to make access harder for the people who need help the most. And when Medicaid is 90% federally funded, you've got to ask, what are states really doing with that money? Oh, right. Okay, they're cutting taxes for the rich while snatching healthcare from children. So, if this week taught us anything, it's that the system is not broken. It's operating exactly as it was intended, protecting institutions, not people. Your rights, conditional. Your healthcare, optional. Your student loan forgiveness, alleged. Something tells me that America needs a hard reset. And I'm hoping that many more people are starting to feel that way and do something about it. There's too many bugs in the system, y'all. We gotta get this glitch. We gotta just hard reset all of this shit. But don't worry, there's still plenty more show to go, and we are just getting warmed the up. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Hey, y'all. Now, if issues on the docket left you feeling like the system is less of a safety net and more of a game of dodgeball that you didn't sign up for, don't worry, it gets worse. Welcome to a new segment we're introducing called The Case That Changed Everything. The part of the show where we look at one ruling, one decision, one quiet little moment in legal history that cracked the foundation under all of us. Because some cases are loud, for sure. Headlines, protests, public outrage. But others, they move in silence, changing the rules of the game while most of us are too busy trying to play fair and be decent people. And this case, y'all, well, see for yourself. Let me ask you a question. A real one, not rhetorical. If the government knows that a child is being abused, like full stop knows, and they do nothing, who should be held responsible when that child ends up permanently brain damaged? Who should answer for that failure, that systemic failure? The abuser? Of course. But what about the agencies that were supposed to protect the child? The people who knew, the people who said, we'll look into it, but never really did. Common sense says somebody should be held accountable. The system should be liable when it chooses inaction over intervention, right? Well, the Supreme Court disagreed. And they did it in a decision that most people have never heard of, but one that quietly reshaped the relationship between the government and the governed in the most chilling way possible. Welcome to Deshaney versus Winnebago County Department of Social Services. The case that told us, in no uncertain terms, that the government doesn't actually have to protect you, even when you're in clear, present, and obvious danger. It all began in the early 1980s in a quiet Wisconsin town. A young boy named Joshua Deshaney, yes, we share a same first name, was living with his father, Randy. The parents had divorced, and the father had been granted full custody. Now, here's the thing. Randy wasn't just any dad. He had a documented history of violence. In 1983, child protection officials received the first report that Joshua might be the victim of abuse. He was only 4 years old, a child. social workers opened a case file. A doctor at the local hospital found bruises. The school reported signs of neglect and injury. Hospital visits continued. Teachers are ringing and sounding all of the alarms. People, in general, in this boy's life were sounding sirens. But despite this growing cavalcade of concern, Winnebago County Department of Social Services made a fateful choice. They took no serious action. They left Joshua in the custody of his father. And then came the incident. One day in 1984, Joshua was beaten so severely by his father that he suffered traumatic brain injury. He was left in a coma. When he came out of it, he was permanently brain damaged. This little boy, whose abuse had been on the radar for over a year, would never walk, talk, or live independently again. Joshua's mother, she thankfully made a cameo and said, "I'm gonna sue." Her argument was straightforward. The state had a responsibility to protect her child. They knew. They truly knew. They had evidence. They had been warned multiple times, and yet they still failed. But when the case made its way to the Supreme Court, the court said no. Not only no, but definitively, constitutionally, no. In a 6-3 decision, the majority held that the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, which says that the government shall not deprive anyone of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law, does not create an obligation for the state to protect individuals from private acts of violence. I'm going to repeat that for y'all in a different way. The government does not have to protect you or anyone else from someone else, even if they knew the harm was coming, and even if their own agents stood by and watched it happen. Chief Justice William Rehnquist, writing for the majority, said, "Nothing in the language of the Due Process Clause itself requires the state to protect the life, liberty, and property of its citizens against invasion by private actors." In other words, the Constitution protects you from the government hurting you, not from the government failing to help you. Wow. This ruling sent a chilling message. It basically told every government worker, social agency, school official, and bureaucrat alike, you can know a child is in danger, do nothing about it, and face zero constitutional consequences, which just doesn't sit right in my spirit. It shouldn't sit right in anyone's spirit. It's very morally inappropriate. And it's just harmful to think about this kind of sentiment that is prevailing within our own government. Deshaney has been cited in hundreds of cases since then. When schools failed to stop bullying that led to suicide, when cops ignored reports of domestic violence that ended in murder, when prisons allowed known threats to go unchecked, resulting in inmate deaths. We've all seen and heard many of these stories in the news. Each time, courts point back to Deshaney and say, the state has no duty to act unless it has you in its custody. Think about that for a second. You can be in clear, present danger. Call the police, have them show up, watch what's happening, and walk away. And the Constitution has nothing to say about that. The bar for state liability was officially set not at knew about the danger, but at actively caused the harm. The Deshaney decision isn't just a case about child abuse. It's a case about the social contract of America, the unspoken agreement between citizens and their government, that we follow the rules, pay our taxes, abide by the law, and in return, the government will do its best to protect us. This case ripped that contract to shreds. It told us you are on your own, essentially. Now, sure, this doesn't mean social workers or police cannot act. It just means they're not required to, and that's a very big difference. And when agencies are underfunded, overworked, or just downright indifferent, that distinction really matters. It creates a world where help is optional, where justice is procedural, not moral, and where the most vulnerable among us, children, abuse victims, the unhoused, the mentally ill, become collateral damage in a system designed for plausible deniability. So I actually have a few instances here that are some modern echoes of the Deshaney decision. In Parkland, Florida, families sued law enforcement after school resource officers failed to confront the shooter. Deshaney was cited in defense arguments. The state didn't cause the harm. In New York City, a woman repeatedly reported her ex for threats and stalking. Police ignored her until she was killed. The courts dismissed her family's lawsuit, citing Deshaney. During Hurricane Katrina, which I remember from experience, countless people stranded without aid sued for abandonment. Judges pointed to Deshaney, saying that the state failed to act but did not violate the Constitution. The through line here is very clear. This decision didn't just change the law, it changed the culture of accountability within the law. Here's why, in my opinion, we can't let this decision be forgotten. It shapes the default setting for government responsibility. It tells agencies what they don't have to do, rather what they do and must accomplish for its citizens. And in a country where budget cuts are wrapped in red tape and compassion is extremely conditional, downright optional, that matters. The folks most affected by this ruling are the same people most ignored by the system. Poor families, disabled folks, people of color, survivors of domestic abuse, people without the resources to push back. Deshaney gave the state a shield, essentially. And the most vulnerable among us have been getting bludgeoned by it ever since. This case really took the wind out of me when I first read it. Not just because I share the same first name as the case's center focal point, but because it lays bare the myth that we've been sold, that probably before hearing this, you thought was fact. That if you just follow the process, speak up, and ask for help, someone will intervene. The law quite literally states the opposite. But what happens when you do everything right and the system still fails you? What happens when the people we pay to protect children say, not our problem? What happens is the Deshaney decision. A precedent that told America, suffering doesn't always have a savior. Sometimes the law is just a wall. And to the rest of us, We're left trying to constantly climb it, knowing that if we fall alone. So as we carry that weight into the next segment, I want to switch gears just ever so slightly. Let me know how you feel about the Deshaney decision. In this case, had you heard of it? Have you been impacted by the Deshaney case in any capacity, you or someone you know? Because while Deshaney showed us the government won't protect us, our next stories show how some laws are written to pretend they will. But in reality, they come with a big fat asterisk. Up next, Exhibit Asterisk, where the law looks helpful until you read the fine print. Stay with me. We'll be right back. Cut to the feminine or what? Ow! Cut to the feminine or what? All right, y'all, welcome back and welcome to Exhibit Asterisk, the segment where we pull the receipts on laws and policy that look shiny and protective until you read the fine print. This is where the legal language goes from, oh, wow, that's fair, to, oh, bitch, that's fraud, written in cursive. Because if there's one thing the American legal system knows how to do, y'all, it's serve up technicalities with a heaping helping of confusion. Today, we're taking 3 of the most commonly misunderstood protections and dragging them right into the light for a closer examination. These are the rules that sound like rights until they don't. Let's break it down. First up, let's talk about the Family and Medical Leave Act, which many of you, I'm sure, have heard of, the FMLA. Now, the law itself, in theory, says that the FMLA is the government's way of establishing that you, as a citizen, should be able to take time off to care for your health or your loved ones without losing your job. The asterisk here, y'all. It doesn't have to be paid, and you might not even qualify to take it in the first place. Let's unpack this really quick. To be eligible for FMLA, you need to have worked for the same employer for at least 12 months, logged at least 1,250 hours in that time period, and the company needs to have 50 or more employees within a 75-mile radius. So good luck if you work part-time, freelance, or for a small business. Run through that checklist that I just gave you and see if you qualify or not. And even if you do qualify, you get 12 weeks of unpaid leave. That's right, unpaid is the operative word there. So congratulations, you have 12 weeks that you can be legally broke without any sort of compensation.
Yeah, double homicide.
Great. That's exactly what we need when we're dealing with some sort of medical crisis. So the way I can kind of interpret this is that you're allowed to take time off, right? But only if you're lucky enough to afford unpaid rent, unpaid groceries, and unpaid therapy time, because you somehow have this massive nest egg that you'll be able to foot the bill for up to 12 weeks. That is not the reality for most Americans. This law is the equivalent of saying you can absolutely have a seat at the table and then pulling the chair away when you sit down. Thanks for nothing. So while you're recovering from illness, a newborn, or just simultaneously stressing about how to afford groceries, let's turn to another one of these laws that sounds supportive until you realize it is just courtroom cosplay. Second, we're going to look at the right to counsel in immigration proceedings. Under US law, immigrants have the right to be represented by an attorney in deportation proceedings. The asterisk here, that attorney, you have to pay for them. If you can't afford one, the government is under no obligation to provide you with one. Unlike in criminal cases, when they say if you can afford one, you will be appointed one, a public defender, right? So let that sink in. You can be an undocumented minor, barely speaking English, facing removal from the only country you've ever known. And the court is like, best of luck, girl. Best of luck. We don't have anything for you, babe. Oof. Immigration court isn't just paperwork, and people don't really think about that part. It's adversarial, it's complex, it's nuanced, and it's life-altering. Studies show that immigrants with legal counsel are up to 10 times more likely to win their cases. But most go unrepresented because they cannot afford it. And you think, do you think that the government doesn't know that and recognize that? That's the reason why it's easier for the government to take the stances that they have, especially this administration. Can't afford it? Get out. That's exactly what they want. But imagine defending yourself in court with no lawyer, no experience with the law, no translator, and no idea of what notice to appear even means. Now imagine your life depending on all of that. It's not due process. It's due stress. And it is distressing to consider the way that this country still treats immigrants as lesser than. Now, if that wasn't enough to make your blood pressure spike just a taste, let's talk about your job. Or more accurately, how fast you can lose it for absolutely nothing at all. Our third law is going to touch on at-will employment. Some of you may have heard of this term before. In most states, employment is considered to be at will, meaning employers can fire you at any time for any reason or no reason at all. And that's already a little wonky. But the asterisk here, as long as it's not an illegal reason, like, racial or gender discrimination or sexual assault, they're free to send you packing without notice. But here's the kicker. Those illegal reasons are super hard to prove unless your boss straight up emails you saying, I'm firing you because you're black. I'm firing you because you're gay. If it's not that, you're probably out of luck. That means that your employer can fire you because they don't like your vibe or your outfit, or you wore red on a Wednesday, or because they had a bad burrito that you brought in on a group order that they wanted in the first place. And you, the employee, you just get to sit there stunned, wondering if you can afford your rent this month. You can be fired for nothing, y'all. And guess what? Suing them, that's extra. It's like having a job on a first date. You're always one weird look away from being ghosted by HR. What kind of relationship is that? It's a bad one. So there you have it. The laws that sound empowering until you read the receipts. FMLA, only if you're lucky and financially stable. Immigration counsel, sure, if you can afford it. Job security, only if your boss is feeling emotionally well balanced that day. Exhibit asterisk reminds us that in the legal world, a lot of things look good on paper until real people try to use them. Coming up next, we're closing the show out with a little fire, a little heat. You already know what time it is. Objection, Your Honor, is up next. Stay tuned. All right, folks, we've reached that part of the show. The one where the gloves come off, the tone gets a little bit more pointed, and the courtroom gets a little bit louder. And the courtroom is the courtroom of public opinion. All of my legals out there. This is Objection, Your Honor, where we call out the hypocrisy, the injustice, and the legal nonsense with no filter and no apology. Because after everything we've unpacked today, how the courts let you get arrested for talking back, how policies punish you for being broke, and how protections come with more strings than a puppet show, somebody's gotta say it plain. So, here it is. I object to the price of being poor in America. Let's go. Members of the Court of Public Opinion, I rise today in absolute objection, not to a person, not to a policy, but to a pattern. A pattern of exploitation dressed up as policy. A system that looks poor folks directly in the eye and says, sure, we'll help you. Just as soon as you prove you deserve it, pay for it up front, and survive the paperwork while you're drowning in that debt. I object to the way this country has turned every basic need into a premium subscription service. You need time off to heal? You better be rich. You want legal representation in immigration court? Hope your family can crowdfund it. You just got fired for no reason? Good luck finding a lawyer who isn't carrying 250 cases and trying to stay sane on 3 hours of sleep. The law says we have rights, but for far too many of us, especially if you're Black, brown, or broke, these rights come with fine print, hidden fees, and an income requirement. Poverty in this country isn't just hard. It's criminalized, quite literally. And when you live at the intersections of racial inequality and economic exploitation, the system doesn't just give you the benefit of the doubt. It gives you bureaucracy. It gives you barriers. It gives you bail you can't afford and benefits you can't access. You're told you have a right to medical leave, right? But the law doesn't pay your bills while you're out. You're told you have a right to due process, but you'll be standing alone in front of a judge, terrified with no lawyer and no translator if you're an immigrant. You're told you can't be fired for the wrong reasons, but your boss doesn't have to give you a reason at all. Where, my friends, is the justice in all of that? This isn't just a glitch in the system. This is carefully and systematically designed oppression. Oh, and let's not pretend this lands evenly, that oppression that I'm speaking of. Black and brown people, we've been on the front lines of this hypocrisy since day one. Since we were forced here, many of our ancestors. We built this country's wealth and got generational debt in return. We fought for equal protection and got qualified immunity. Don't know what that means? Google it. We organized for freedom and got red tape, redlining, and red ink. Our pain, it's politicized. Our labor is always undervalued. Our access is conditional. And when we call it out, you all know this, I'm sure, We're told to be grateful for the crumbs we get, while billionaires dodge taxes like it is a collegiate sport. So, no, with all of that, I'm not going to stay calm with it. I'm not going to stay quiet with it. I'm not going to maintain neutrality. Something else we've talked about on this show. And I'm definitely not going to just sit there and observe these things happening without standing up. Because this country, it spends more time defending the rights of idiots, corporations, and unnecessarily problematic people than the dignity of its working class, everyday, average Joe citizens. It gives billion-dollar bailouts to banks and then has the nerve to lecture single black mothers about budgeting when they're just trying to make it and living off food stamps. It funds police departments with tanks while Medicaid recipients get dropped over paperwork they did not receive in the mail. If the law is supposed to be equal, I just have one question. Why does justice feel like a luxury item? So I object to the lie that this system was built for all of us. It wasn't. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that. I object to laws that sound fair on paper, but fail real people in practice. And I object loudly, clearly, and unapologetically to a legal framework that asks the most from those who have the least. Because if you need a six-figure income, a master's degree in bureaucracy, and a lawyer on retainer just to live with dignity, that's not freedom. That's actually financial gatekeeping dressed up as democracy. We gotta do better. All right, and that is a wrap on episode 14 of Overruled, where we broke down how rights come with terms and conditions. Protection depends on your paycheck, and the legal system still expects you to be grateful for the bare minimum. If any part of today's show had you shaking your head, clapping your hands, or yelling, "That part, very that," into the void, do me a favor. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Rate the show. Drop 5 stars. Leave a review. There's many of you lurking in the shadows, and I'd really appreciate it if you showed up for your boy. Y'all know the algorithm loves a good act of digital resistance. Let's blacken it up some, please. Come on, share me, share me, share me. I want to be... That sounds very suggestive, but y'all know what I mean. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Overruled Podcast. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Overruled Podcast, for bonus content, clips, visuals, and behind-the-scenes fire that I'm working on, okay? Remember, it is a one-person shop over here, so your boy is doing everything. Got a legal oddity, a rant of your own, or a weird law you want me to roast? Email us at theoverruledpodcast@gmail.com. So, until next time, y'all, stay loud, stay curious, and remember, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right. Bye. Boom. All right. Woo! We did it, y'all. I don't even have no song that's coming to my head right now. I'm just telling y'all, it has been a long and very, very wild week. Fun. Ooh, we'll start with this because we'll start with a couple things. Let me get a sip first, you know. Welcome to JB's Afties. The drink that I am sipping on today for my Afties is Bai. If you've seen these in the store, are really, really good. My favorite one is the orange one. It's like not a mandarin orange, but it's some sort of like tangerine, clementine thing. It's really, really good. And this one is Zambia being cherry. She's also good too, but I really prefer the orange one the most. But that one, for some reason, is always so hard to find. I kid you not, I have to go to a very specific store to get the orange ones, but they're rarely at like a Ralph's, a Vons, a Whole Foods, like a Target even, the orange, just not there. But this one is, and all the other flavors that I don't with. But anyway, so I was gonna start with some good, fun, interesting news, and that is I received my um fall semester course schedule that I have been fully registered for for my JD program. So I saw that email come through and I was like, "Oh shit, this is real. This is really, really real." And so I shared it with my friends and a couple family members, and they were all like, hyping me up and stuff about it. So I was like really happy to see that, oh shit, it's literally here. I am registered for class. So there's no turning back, at least for me. There's no turning back for the boy. So that was a good little tidbit of news. And by the time this episode comes out, I may already be in law school, but it doesn't matter. Okay. I'm giving you what's happening in this moment, and you'll just catch the updates as they happen because these episodes, yeah, I don't have a full well, I have them planned out. So I just don't know where this one's gonna fall in the mix. I'm pretty sure it's gonna come out after I start school. So it'll be very ironic saying this now and then y'all listening to it and being like, wait, aren't you already in school? Anyway, so there's that. And I found out something very, very interesting about someone that I had been dating from a friend of a friend. And what it confirmed was mind blowing. Like, there's a pattern that this person has. And I wasn't tripping when I was like, something's off here. I gotta step away because I'm detecting issues on your part that you aren't aware of. But to know from at least two other people, y'all, that this person has done the same thing to them. Oh, baby, that confirms everything I knew. And I didn't know about this until well after stopping talking to them in that regard. So listen, Karma, she is a baddie, okay? And the fact that I found out about this after the fact, it really made me feel more secure in my gut instincts because typically, yeah, I have a strong instinct about people and a strong like read, and this left me questioning myself. Um the way this all kind of settled out in the wash. But knowing what I know now, I'm like, oh my God, I was right. My perception was right from the jump. So the way that I see it, y'all, and I hope the way you see it, if you encounter things like this, which we all do, if you're dating, if you're whatever you're doing in your world, in your life, it's always important to trust your intuition and your instinct. And the way that I see this is that this was something that I needed to experience very, very briefly, like weeks. And from that, I have an even more open perspective on what I know I'm looking for, I want, and what I can detect from other people. So I'm just glad it's something else. I'm like, oh, building on top of that. And I can't wait to tell my therapist about this next week when I talk to her because we had already kikied about it and she had words. She was like, oh, ooh, yeah, no, your intuition, spot on. nigga has issues. um, but yeah, outside of those two things, life has been just lifing. Lots of work, um, lots of socializing with friends because it's about to be, I have like just a short amount of weeks left before school starts, and I know that's going to change my focus. So I'm really maximizing that time. It's been great. And we outside having a good old time, a good gay ass time. Okay. Um, Shout out to y'all for listening. Thank you so much for riding with me for this long. Or if you're just jumping in right here, welcome aboard, babe. This is what we do at the end of the show, at the let out. This is the afties. And we just, we I just talk at you guys, not about law stuff, but about Joshua stuff. Um, and yeah, that's all I got. Okay, I'm gonna go get my life together. I need to clean the house a little bit, I think. And then I'm gonna get a workout in at some point today. If I'm feeling it. If not, then we just gonna chill. Maybe I'll do like a mm, never mind. I'm not gonna say that on camera. But yeah, I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my day. I hope you all enjoy yours, and I will see you all in the next one. I love you, not in a weird way. Love me back, not in a weird way. Okay. Bye.